This is G. Montrastille, and welcome to the Tapping Q&A podcast recorded live to tape from Williamsburg in Brooklyn. This is episode 530, originally aired May 4th, 2022. Hi everyone, I hope this finds you well wherever you are. Whatever time of day you get a chance to listen to this, thanks for spending a little time with me today. Today, we are going to talk about and do a little tapping for one of the sneakiest emotions that creates resistance to change. And if you are not aware of this particular emotion and how it is working, it is going to hold you back from moving forward. Before we do that, just two quick announcements. First of all, we have a free 10-part guide to help you to eliminate self-sabotage with tapping. All you need to do is go to tappingqanda.com, click on that big blue button, enter your email address, and every day for the next 10 days, we'll send you a free resource, some tapping, some not, but at the end of 10 days, you'll have a whole group of tools that you'll be able to use, and you can pick the one or two that work the best for you, making it easier for you to clear resistance and take action. Secondly, a big shout out to all the supporters of the Tapping Q&A podcast. You make the podcast possible and free for people all over the world. If you'd like to support the podcast and receive some amazing thank you gifts to ensure that we keep moving forward in this way, all you need to do is go to tappingqanda.com/support. That's tappingqanda.com/support. And thank you again to all of our amazing supporters. So a couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to do the ID transformation retreat. And it was a powerful, powerful day where we went in and we found the limiting beliefs that are holding us back from creating transformation. And as part of that event, 6 days later, I did a bonus call with anybody who wanted to show up as an opportunity to see what had happened since we did the transformation on that day and to see what questions people had after the event as they were implementing the tools that they had learned on their own. And over the course of the 2-hour conversation in follow-up, one of the participants brought forward an emotion that I think is one of the sneakiest and trickiest emotions. But if you are listening to this podcast, I would be willing to bet on some level you suffer from this particular emotion getting in the way. And that emotion is the feeling of being selfish whenever we are taking care of ourselves. And the reason why I say that if you are listening to this podcast, you are probably susceptible to this, it's because I have found, and this comes up all the time with my clients, that people who are thoughtful and deliberate and trying to take responsibility for what is going on internally so they can create transformation in their life, those are the type of people who also recognize their impact on the people around them and are aware of what the people around them are going through. And anytime we are in a circumstance where we have some time, some space, maybe even some money to invest in our transformation, by those simple facts, that means you're doing really, really well. That there are many, many people in the world who don't have enough free time to sit down and to do some transformational work, either because their day is busy trying to make ends meet, or they're taking care of family, or they're just stretched so thin they don't get that opportunity. And I hear the phrase from my clients all the time, there are people who have it so much worse than me. There are people who have it so much worse than me. And that is true, but just because there is other suffering in the world does not mean that we ignore our own suffering. Just because there are other places where transformation should and can happen doesn't mean that we have to put ourselves behind others and put ourselves last. Because the reality is, you are doing things every single day that, under a very broad definition of selfish, is selfish. Did you sleep last night? That's selfish, because this is completely an act about you. Did you have breakfast this morning or have a meal today? That is about you. Did you just take a deep breath? That's a completely selfish act. And I know that sounds a little farcical for me to push it that far, but I think it's important to recognize that oftentimes we believe we're only allowed to have enough to sustain ourselves and nothing more. And if we are just running on the edge of sustaining, we're missing the richness of our own life, and we're actually making it harder for us to show up for the people around us. And so today, what I have for you is actually pulled from that bonus question and answer section, the tapping we did around feeling selfish. Now, at this particular moment, if you don't think that this is something that you're struggling with, I would encourage you to still tap along to this. And the reason why I would encourage that is it is possible that this thought at somewhere, that there is a level where you feel like you are taking too much. And if that level exists and you bump into it, you are going to stop your healing and your transformation in a subconscious way. Because there is a part of you that doesn't want to be selfish and doesn't want to take more than your fair share. And it's going to hold you back from creating the transformation that you want. So I'm willing to bet that either consciously or subconsciously, this is something that you are struggling with. And so I would encourage you, just take a few minutes right now and tap along to it. So enjoy this little tap along. I recognize the fact I was given the story that I shouldn't always make it about me, that I should be aware of the people around me and how lucky I have it. And because that story was the story I was given, I consistently put myself last. And I feel bad anytime I put myself first. And I was given that story by well-meaning adults who didn't want me to be a giant jerk. And they taught me the wrong lesson. And they taught it to me in an unuseful way. Because the reality is, part of my experience as a human is to create the experience I want as a human. And I should take responsibility for that experience. And I should take responsibility for the consequence of that experience. But that does not mean I just get by on crumbs and just be sufficient. I am allowed to have a rich, diverse life filled with all sorts of amazing things. And I give myself permission to be easy and gentle with myself as I recognize the fact it is okay for me to have richness, not just sustenance. I was given emotions and senses to truly experience what it means to be human. I was not given intellect to suppress that experience. Instead, I'm allowed to create. I'm allowed to play. And I can put down the definition of what is selfish and why it is bad. That definition doesn't serve me right now. And at some point in the future, if I wanted to pick it back up, I can certainly do that. But I give myself permission to enjoy the richness of life. I hope this is something that you found useful. In the demonstration that I did this with the volunteer, she immediately recognized the fact and changed her attitude around taking care of herself and went from feeling like it was selfish to feeling like it was her calling. It's what she's supposed to be doing as a human, is taking care of herself and enjoying the richness of life. And you may not land in that particular spot, but if we can soften this idea of feeling selfish, taking care of ourselves, we're so much more likely to take care of ourselves, which means that we're so much more likely to be able to show up in the world in a helpful, healthy way. So if you enjoyed that little tap along and you know someone in your life who might appreciate it, please pass it along. Our marketing budget is your word of mouth. The most common way someone finds a new piece of content is from the recommendation of a friend. And even if you reach out to someone today, send them a link to this podcast and say, hey, I was thinking of you. You might like this. Even if they don't click the link, even if they don't listen to the audio, their day is going to be a little better because they know someone, you, is thinking of them and they are not alone as they are navigating the day. If you haven't done so already, please, please, please subscribe to the podcast and podcasting parlance. The Tapping Q&A podcast is always free. Yes, there are podcasts that have memberships or behind paywalls. This is not one of them. You can find the show everywhere you find audio, in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pandora, Spotify, Audible, Amazon Music, wherever you find audio. Just search for Tapping Q&A. Click follow, click subscribe, whatever the button is in your app. And most importantly, turn on the notifications. So every single time a new episode comes out, you know right away, so you can tap along with us or learn along with us. I have a bunch of amazing guests lined up over the course of the late spring and summer. If you have questions, if you have comments, if you have a topic or a guest you'd like me to feature in the future, it's really easy. Just drop a note to support@tappingqa.com. I see all of those emails and would love, love, love to hear from you. Some of the best shows and some of the best guests we've had have come from recommendations from listeners just like you. For the Tapping Q&A podcast, this is Gene Montrestelli. I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you real soon. Bye-bye. The Tapping Q&A podcast is copyright Gene Montrestelli Tapping Q&A. All views expressed by guests are those of the guests and not necessarily of Gene Montrestelli and Tapping Q&A.